Welcome to JohnG TV. Oh, wait. Woo! Alright, so what we gonna do today? We talked about the filter. We got the amp out of the way. Let's go ahead and get into the LFO. The LFO is definitely, I think, is where your basic groove box, if it has or when it has LFO involved, especially one like this, you're definitely taking your groove box to that next level. It definitely takes it out of the basic realm, and because it's now is giving you the ability to affect samples in a different way other than just triggering them on steps. But with this LFO, you get so much more depth. Keep in mind, the Digitakt is definitely a programmer's box, and I kind of understand why you know, I believe certain people gravitate towards it, and why maybe certain people are not gravitating towards it. It really isn't necessarily, like I was saying about the soul, the padding. Not that it's not a performance powerhouse, because it is, but the way you think and the way you use it is really coming from behind the mind of a programmer. And so if you are one that likes to program, then you're gonna love the Digitakt, because it's got a tool set that I've never really seen before. And keep in mind, I'm new to Elektron completely, so everybody that's already with Elektron, you guys already know this is nothing new to you, but the tools that they give you and how you can use them is very different from everything else I've kind of used in the past, which has been mainly like Korg samplers. I never owned an MPC, but I have used them. So I really can't speak in the depth as to how they work in terms of all the inner workings of the MPC, but I know it was basically more built around the performance of it, playing the pads, and chopping your samples. But yeah, this one, you know, I think the main thing about this LFO is the destination. They give you a matrix that I think is just dope. It's kind of, I don't know, to me it feels revolutionary. It feels just, you know, something very refreshing and new, because now you can modulate things like the sample slot, which that could take you, I mean, you can't even, I don't care how smart you are in music and music theory and all that kind of stuff, when you throw in a sample slot in the LFO, and what you're about to hear is like, you have no idea what's about to happen. And for me, that is, you know, I love happy accidents, especially when you're talking about music making. I just love it, because, you know, always knowing what's going to happen, you know, kind of gets boring. So to be able to plug something in and have something happen where it's like, what's that? And I just, you know, if it wasn't for recording, oh my God, where would we be if we weren't able to recall what we just did? That's the greatest thing in music, is being able to record and listen back to what you just did. So I kind of digress, but look, this is the cherry on top. This destination part of the LFO is really where it's just, to me, where it's like, it's screaming, look at me. So you have your amp, volume pan, reverb send, delay send, overdrive. Basically everything that you can do, you can modulate through the LFO. So you got your hold time, attack time, release time, sustain level, decay time, attack time. So for you programmers, those of you that really think like that, you can really get jiggy with this. I mean, you can really add motion to your patterns to whereas a 1-bar loop now, with trigs and things like trigs and things of that nature, it would take a simple 4-bar or a 4-bar, a 4-count, 1 measure, a 116 step loop could essentially have motion of a 64 step sequence. And if you properly program all 64 steps, no one would ever even catch the loop. It'll just sound like it's just continually, and it will be continually changing if you program it the correct way. And so the LFO to me is just a great tool for manipulating your sonics and your samples. So being able to, at that destination, to me that sample slot is really just, that's the ill one, because you never know what's going to happen with sample slot. And then you also have your tuning, and the loop position, like everything that you have in all your other windows, you have in this LFO as a destination. I think that's dope. I think that's just simply dope. So you factor in that. Next, you just have your depth, or the amount that you want to add in. You have I guess this will be your no coast. I don't know which coast it is with the subtractive synthesis, but being able to dial it in how much you want, but then being able to subtract. To me, I'm always surprised at what happens, because it's kind of like, I don't know if subtraction in this way makes it go in reverse, but it always definitely changes the sound up. But yeah, being able to dial it in, and you have your different modes. Now, I can't explain to you. I'm sure some of you guys know exactly what all of these necessarily mean, but the trigger mode free, trig, hold, 1, and then half. When I say I don't know what they mean, sonically, I haven't really caught what's happening. I know when I change something, it does change, and I just keep changing till I like what I'm hearing. I don't understand what this is per se, and what I'm gonna hear when I change it. That doesn't even register to me. I don't care about that. I'll figure it out in time. But as of right now, I'll turn it just to see what happens. And just like with any synthesizer, as far as I'm concerned, when you're starting out, you just gotta turn the knobs, listen to what's happening as you turn the knobs, and over time you'll start to understand, what you're doing. So in this case right here, haven't really, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'll play with it, and definitely dial in, but I haven't really quite got what's going on here. The speed, the sample and hold rather, again, just being able to dial in a certain amount. That's not sample and hold, that's start phrase. Okay. Being able to, I guess I didn't know that. Maybe that's where the position of it is, which where I thought it was something about. Yeah, I sure did. I did just realize that I see the start phase. I thought that was sample and hold because it was always adding some different characteristic. That explains why. All right, so it's the start position. All right, makes sense now. Okay. So yeah, I just learned myself that. All right, so the start phase is starting the manipulation of whatever destination you got set. So you're just basically setting where it's going to actually happen in that sample. And then the speed of it is obviously just the speed of it, how fast it's going to go. Or, again, with the subtractive synthesis, whatever coast that is, you can take it from, forward speed or negative speed. I definitely notice it all sounds will manipulate, especially with your different waveforms, random, ramp, expression, sawtooth, square wave, sine, triangle. I basically used it. I really don't use the random too tough. That's one that I don't use that often for the most part. But I'll just go through whatever one sonically I'm listening to what I want to hear, and sometimes I'll know, like, okay, I want that sawtooth, or I know I want the expression, because when I look at that graph or I go to that waveform sonically, I get what I'm trying to hear. So again, for me, it's all about listening to the, ear. It's listening to my ear and kind of seeing, what I'm looking for or whatever. And then you got the fade, which is basically, fading in and out. So that's real simple. So you can fade your effect, which typically I don't mess with too tough. Every now and then I'll fade it out. I don't really fade it in because I typically want it to hit, immediately. But again, it depends on what kind of music you're making or what you're making. You have just a palette. You have tools that are at your disposal to manipulate and craft this sound. So again, the LFO, I think the LFO is definitely another winning piece, with that destination being something that's kind of unique, especially with the sample slot and all your being able to modulate all of those different functions. I think that's absolutely dope. So that will conclude my review of the LFO. This is JohnG TV. I am JohnG, the El Capitan. And we just listened to one of the, I think I played this jam before. This ain't nothing new. What is new is all my new pedals.